Hello, my fellow investors, and welcome to the first week of 2023 when it comes to stock market updates. And boy, was it a week. Oh my lord. I have this on the 1 year. Let me bring this over to the 5-day, guys. Take a look at this. On the week, the SP500 gained 0.71%. Now, the big story here is that, well, December jobs growth came in today on the 6th of January, and it beat forecast, but because it had slower month-over-month growth and unemployment fell to 3.5%, Dow Jones jumped 700 points, Nasdaq and S&P also surged more than 2% on the jobs data. And in fact, we can see this here. We move this over to the 1 day, 2.28% on the S&P 500. Absolutely insane. Basically, when ADP came out with their job numbers, the market completely crashed, which, I mean, you pretty much just see this at around like this point right here. And, well, as soon as the real jobs data came out, apparently everything changed. I don't know why, but because it was month over month slower, people were like, oh, okay, so it's at least slowing down, therefore the Fed would eventually start to pivot. And by the way, that is essentially the crux of this whole entire narrative. It all stems from the Fed pivoting. All of these job numbers, every single instance of the Dow going up or down, Nasdaq and S&P as well, all has to do with the idea that the worse the economy gets, the Fed will then have to be forced to cut rates. Therefore, money will be easier to borrow. The better the economy does, meaning the more jobs that are made, unemployment falls, the Fed will just be bolstered to keep increasing interest rates, and therefore the market goes down. It's essentially the opposite of everything that we know to be true and dear. If the economy is good, then stocks go down because the Fed will just keep increasing interest rates. If the economy is bad, then the Fed will most likely cut interest rates, therefore stock market goes up. It's absolutely insane, and this is why we saw this massive gain just on 1 day of 2.28%. So now with that said, let's jump over into the heat map to see which companies were the biggest gainers and the biggest losers. Starting, of course, with the tech sector. A lot of big losers here, honestly. We got Microsoft falling at 6.67. We got Now falling almost 6%, but the biggest loser out of all of them would actually have to be Enphase, losing almost 12%. And the biggest gainer would actually have to be Western Digital Corporation, WDC, gaining 17.74% on the week. Coming into the communications, we only had one red one here, guys, and that was none other than Google. Google fell 1.25%, and the biggest gainer would actually have to be, believe it or not, Warner Bros. Discovery, gaining a massive, and when I mean massive, 20.04% on the week. Looking into the consumer cyclicals, a lot of green here, however, a little bit spots of red, but the biggest red by far, I mean, if you guys can't see it already, Tesla. The darling Tesla falling 7.2% on the week. And the biggest gainer would be Wynn Resorts Limited, gaining 15.15%. Looking now into the consumer defensives, we got, once again, a lot of green, however, actually a lot of red as well, with the two losers being ADM at 7.7%, and the biggest loser overall in this sector was Constellation Brands STZ, losing 8.76%. And when it came to the biggest gainer, from what it's looking like, guys, it would have to be Lamb Weston Holdings, gaining 12% on the dot. And now into the financials, the biggest loser here would be CBOE, losing 2.9%. And the biggest gainer was actually really hard to find because, I mean, this is just all green overall. This is absolutely massive. But the biggest gainer from what it's looking like, guys, is Market Access Holdings, MKTX, gaining 10.82%. Looking now into the healthcare sector, we actually just had an entire industry here when it came to the healthcare plans losing overall, and a couple of the drug manufacturers as well losing. However, the biggest loser from what I could see, guys, would actually have to be Molina Healthcare losing almost 9.5%, and the biggest gainer, IDXX, gaining 9.11%. And now into the industrial sector, a lot of green here. However, when it came to the losers, we only had a little bit of losers, honestly, but the worst one from what I could see in the industrial sector, guys, would actually have to be, well, from what it's looking like, Northrop Grumman losing 3.8%. And the biggest gainer overall would be none other than Boeing, gaining 12.75%. Into the real estate sector, this one was very, very interesting because you can clearly see we did have a lot of somewhat red slash flat when it came to like the real estate residentials, but you could definitely see companies in the healthcare REITs, they did fairly decent. And from what it's looking like, the biggest gainer would be Health Peak Properties gaining 6.11%, and even Welltower gaining 6%. And the biggest loser would be EXR losing 3.36%. Into the utilities, actually fairly red. From what it's looking like, the biggest loser would be AES losing 8.26%, and the biggest gainer would be EIX gaining 3.83%. And when it comes into the most meme of all sectors, you guys saw this when I put them on the year to date just 1 week ago at the end of the year. This was like the only gem that occurred in the entire year of 2022, which was hilarious. Like the only green sector. It was pretty funny. But so far this week, it's kind of mixed. The biggest loser would be APA losing 6.58%. And the biggest gainer, there really wasn't anything that major, honestly, but you can clearly see the biggest gainer would be Halliburton gaining 3.45%, with other ones like SLB gaining 3% and PXD gaining 2.99%. And lastly, when it comes into the basic materials, we actually have a lot of green here, but the biggest loser would be Linde PLC losing 4.12%, and the biggest gainer would be CE gaining almost 12.7%. Overall, guys, very, very green week. Issue is that majority of this green came in at like the last day of the week, came in on Friday, just because the job numbers fell month over month, just like I showed you all at the beginning of the video. Is this called for? In my personal opinion, it isn't. It's filled with hopium, and I think the Fed is going to come out and completely just smack all these people who thought, let's bring the market up because the Fed's going to pivot. The Fed, Jerome Powell, at least he has not indicated any pivot at all. So this idea that because job numbers are falling month over month, even though the prior day the market crashed because ADP said, oh no, job numbers are expected to higher, job numbers are actually higher than what you guys expected. All of that changed in 24 hours, actually less than 24 hours. That to me is just very, very unfounded. And I think this means absolutely nothing. I think we're going to see a lot more red as we get more and more rate hikes into the future. We shall see next week when CPI comes out on Thursday. That pretty much does it for this video, everybody. Like if you like, comment, subscribe. It really does help out with the algorithm on YouTube. You guys can follow me on my YouTube sites. Link in the description below. So with that said, peace out, and I will see you all in the next video.